Hi, everyone. Really happy to see some familiar names and some new names and faces. Lisa, I think um, since you got your video on, I'm not quite sure whether we've ever met in any of these programs. Have we met? Is this your first time? First time? Welcome. Welcome to the Ice Cafe. For those of you like Lisa, this may be your first experience. I trust you'll have lots of goodies to go away with and apply. Today, as you know, we're going to focus on listening, and I want to just start by saying this 60 minutes that we're going to be together, I want to emphasize that there's a big why around listening and listening effectively, and for us to invest in ourselves to learn how to listen more actively and effectively. The big why goes back to a story that I want to share with you around my own childhood. One of the things I remember as a child, and it stayed with me throughout my life, is how easy it was for me to build relationships with others. And when I reflect on that, the reason why it was so easy was because people felt safe in coming to have a chat with me at any time. So I was available and I was present to what people had to say. And there was this sense that they could say anything and it would stay right there. And there was also a sense that I'm hearing them. So today, I want to kind of emphasize the difference between us listening to others and really hearing them. And I think there's a big difference there, and there's a gap in how I see some people apply that, and they're missing an opportunity to build trusting, strong linkage with the relationships that matter to them, and the relationships that um, is part of their value system. So you may value family or friends or colleagues at work. Now, if you value, um, then automatically that is a um, part of our neurology to do, to behave, to interact in a way where we can show that value. So we actually spend time there. So I'm guessing all of you on this call have individuals that you value, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's colleagues, maybe all of them. And the big why is the opportunity where by investing in ourselves and learning the skill and some of the mindset behind this, we have the power, the ability to enhance that relationship with those people that are of value to us. So in my personal life, um, family, friends, colleagues are a high up in value. The relationship I build with them is paramount on building on trust. And one of the ways to build trust is to be present with them and give them the space that it's safe for them to say whatever it is that they want to say. Even if you don't want to hear what they want to say, they feel safe that they can say it because they know that you will respond in a way that builds that relationship rather than ruins it. So the big why is in today's conversation is how do we use the listening skill to enhance our relationships for those people that we really care about. How do we apply that? How do we change ourselves to get that as an outcome? We'll go through the 5 levels of listening today, and I've added a bonus 6th level for those of you who want to really go into the mastery of listening and building trusting and safe space with others. And then we're going to provide you a series of questions so you can evaluate at what level you think you are. And whatever the gap is, you will be able to have access to go and build on the areas where you have selected that you've given yourself a lower number. So that's how we're going to finish today, by you evaluating and deciding on what you want to do with it, and taking some action to go and build on that. So without further ado, I'm going to share the slides that I'm gonna run through, and my purpose right now is to give you a context with these slides and build up to the 5 levels. So there's a bit of knowledge transfer, and I want you to kind of learn that through some examples. So I'm going to ask for volunteers to have a conversation with, so that we can understand what these mean and where they sit. So before we kick off, what is this listening skill in relation to the coaching profession, or the coaching skills that you can learn to apply in your day-to-day life, or as a coach in your profession? So ICF has identified 8 competencies. These are relatively new outlines. Some of you, maybe coaches, know this already. So I want to emphasize that this 8 skills are centered around 4 pillars. If you look at where active listening sits, it sits in the communicating effectively with others. And one of the outcomes of communicating effectively with others is when others come to you to get insights about themselves, to learn more about themselves. So this could be your daughter, it could be your son, it could be your husband, wife, it could be your colleague. If they are in a talking mode where they seem to be stuck somewhere, or they want some new light to be shone somewhere, you have the ability through your listening to enhance awareness or enhance self-awareness for them. And if you have the mindset of a coach, you already have gone into that conversation based on the fact that that person is an able person. So if you're looking at your child and they're over 7-8 years old, they've already, their neurology and the way their brains have developed already are able to make some decisions for themselves, and they're ready to be developed. So at a very young age, you can start having that impact through the conversation you're having, all the way through to, if you're a manager in an organization where you have a team and you want to raise their awareness about what they hold as potential or power in doing things and how they do things at work, that kind of aligns with who they are. Who they are is very, very much driven by the talents that they have. And I will be talking a little bit about that towards the end of today as well. So in the context of coaching, you can see a circular linkage between who you are, so the way you are from an ethical conduct, what you say, what you do, how you do it, how you behave. So there's an ethical way you present yourself, and the way you think, your mindset. So that links to the way you talk with others and build trust and safety with others, how you are present with them. This is a big one. How you're present with them can send messages to them indirectly, whether you care about them or not. And we'll talk a little about that as well. And that leads to how you're listening. And you listen through how you're asking questions and how you're observing that individual, whether it's in that communication or through the timeline that you've known them. and you share those questions and observations so that they become more aware of who they are and the potential they have, and then be able to take that learning and grow as an individual. Now, in an organization, the employees are craving for that. That's what they're saying when you're asking people who work for managers. They're saying they want to be developed, they want to be seen and coached. In an organization called the family, the individuals in the family, and it's irrelevant of the age, right? So I remember when I first started coaching, my mum was around 65, 68 years old, and she was curious. She asked me, what is this you do? What are you doing? What is this profession? And I said, the best way I can explain it to you is for us to have a conversation. And we went into a room, we sat down, and I asked some questions, and she was open to having that conversation. And that led to her making some decisions around what she wants to do over the next decade. That she wasn't, she was in the middle of two roads. She made some very key decisions about where she wants to live, how she wants to live, through the fact that she was ready to grow, ready to develop, ready to kind of go to that next phase where she can make some important decisions for herself in her life. So this is not age related either. So this can be applied at any time, any place. And that's why ICF calls this a life skill. So coaching is very much a life skill. So before we go dive into the 5 levels, I want to get to know a little bit about you guys. So I'm going to put a poll out there, and I'm going to ask you to respond to the poll. It's 3 simple questions. The first one is really understanding where you're at right now from a perspective of your employment and your coaching ability. The second one talks about the Clifton StrengthsFinder assessment. It's a Gallup assessment. Some of you I know on this call have done this. Some of you may not know about it. I mentioned the concept of getting to know talents, and this very much relates to this assessment. So I'd love to know how many of you have completed this assessment, and how many of you have heard about a strengths-based development. So whether it's developing yourself or if you're developing others. And a strengths-based development is, again, a mindset. It's a way you think, and it's the decision you make of where you put your time. And in a nutshell, it's if you understand where your power is, where your potential, where your talents are, and you invest there primarily, you are focusing on a strength-based development. And what we've heard and learned and applied, it is the fastest way towards excellence in whatever it is you do in life, at work, or in your personal life. So by knowing a little bit about you, I get to understand what kind of group we have. So I see most of you know about strength-based development and Clifton StrengthsFinder assessment. That's great. And I'm just quickly looking at this, and almost half of you are in training in an ICF approved school. And this was multiple answers. So again, almost half of you are saying you're looking into coaching development. And about 30% of you are saying you're either working in an organization, in a team, or you lead a team. And roughly 20% are saying that you have also completed a ICF accredited training program. Great. Okay, so thank you for that. I'm gonna start by asking you to do something. So what I'd like you to do is to think that you are about to go and work in a laser session, in a short session with a coach. And you have an area in your life, whether it's professional or personal, that you feel you want more speed, you want it to go faster, or you have a certain more quality you want in your life or at work that is not there right now. You want to increase the quality of it. And you are perhaps looking at this goal with the eyes that it is, if it happens, it's going to enhance your life in some way. Okay, so think about that. Wherever in your life you want to give an example, I'd like you to just jot down, and I'm going to challenge you to jot it down in the form of a question. So if you think about a question, and if you go into a conversation with me and you get the answer to that question, you would have got what you needed in our conversation. So, for example, if you want to enhance your well-being in your life in some way, shape, or form, and the question is, where can I start? Where can I start this journey that I've decided that I want to start? And that could be the question you come to the conversation with. Is there anybody that needs a little bit more time? Because I'd like us to kind of go forward together. Anyone needs a little bit more time? Okay. So I'd like to invite you to volunteer, and I don't guarantee I'm going to talk to everybody, but I'd like you to volunteer that we're gonna hear about what's going on in your mind and what is the goal that you have, and we may have some conversation around this. So bear in mind we're talking about listening. So whoever volunteers, when they are talking, I'm going to invite everybody else to start listening to that person and see what level of listening you are applying. So I'm going to go through the levels, and then we're going to have a conversation with one or more of you, and then you're going to establish where are you listening by just observing yourself. So any volunteers? We're not going to go forward if we don't have any volunteers. So I may call upon some of you if you don't volunteer yourself. Thanks, Antu. Anybody else? Christopher, I can see you're umming and ahhing whether you wanna dive in and raise your hand. Right, I'm going to give you a little bit of time and space. Thanks, Chris. So if there are more volunteers, it would be interesting to see, as we hear other people talk about their challenges or their desires, what is it that we are picking up? What do we choose to listen to? So that's the intention of today. Is I'm going to challenge you to observe yourself and determine what is it exactly you are listening to. And I know that you will be listening at different levels, right? So there'll be people at different levels, and that's fine. It's finding out where you are at and then having a plan of where you can go and focus in terms of your next development, where you can enhance your level of listening so you can have a higher impact on yourself and others. That's the journey we're on right now. So thanks for the volunteers. Let me dive in and explain the 5 levels before we go and hear the volunteers. So let's start with this quote. The most basic of all human needs is the need to understand and be understood. The best way to understand people is to listen to them. Now, when we use this word need, I want you to become super sensitive to words and the meanings that they have. This is part of this differentiation of the levels we're starting. So When I say need, when I use the word need, what does that mean to you? Can anyone share? When you hear the word need, what does it mean to you?
It's a desire.
It's a desire. Okay.
It's to fill a gap.
It's to fill a gap. That could also be it. Anyone else?
To be recognized for something.
To be recognized for something.
Mm.
Okay.
Something essential like water or food.
Something essential. Like if I don't have it, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So think about that, guys. You've just heard 3 or 4 different versions, right? So one of the things to observe just immediately is how we define and put meanings to words, right? Those meanings come from our definition. You have learned to give a definition to a word. It's your definition. And you're living by it, right? It's very likely you are living by it. So every time you hear the word need, for Praf, it's how do I fill a gap? What's the desire I'm listening to? Chris, it's all about, what are you paying attention to? Are you having enough focus on? Right? Now, for Gunnar, it means somebody is desperate for this. Can you see the difference in that? We're in a complete range here, right? So one of the things is the power of language and the meaning we give to them. So that's one thing I'd like you to take away from today. Okay? And you give the meaning, and if the other person listening to you doesn't understand your meaning, they're not at the same level of understanding you. So if you're listening to someone and they're talking, if you are alert to the meaning they're giving to what they're saying, you are getting to understand them. That's the other way of looking at it, right? Human beings have a need to understand and be understood. And this is a foundation of one of the foundations of coaching. It says that through active listening, we create psychological linkage with others. We create a safe environment because we're fulfilling a need. That person must have this in order to feel psychologically connected at a high level to you. So if you learn how to fulfill that need in others through your listening, your relationship with them will immediately improve because you're psychologically improving your relationship of the area, the space that you two will occupy with one another. Right? You have filled a need. So it's a bit like someone coming very thirsty and you give them a cup of water. Very hungry, you give them a sandwich. It's a damn good feeling. And that feeling is what they're going to walk away with. And that's going to start building relationships. So that's the fundamentals we're kind of addressing today. So let's dive into the 5 levels. First level. So as you can imagine, these levels go up, and as they go up, they get to have higher impact. The lower level is where I would assert most of the population is sitting. When we go into a conversation, most of the population are sitting at level 1, 2, or 3, which means that they have a gap in a potential skill that they could learn to enhance their relationships and enhance their communication to get things done. So it's an opportunity. So if you are one of them, or you know people who are one of these level 1, 2, and 3, you have the ability to influence that by supporting them to shift to a higher level of listening, right? And obviously the coaching programs are designed to shift the person that's coming on those programs to go to a level 4 and above, right? So that's the outcome of what these levels mean. So what is level 1 saying? It's saying, if I'm listening to you, I'm actually planning what I'm going to say before you finish your talking. Now, as I'm going through these, can I ask you, please, to be absolutely honest and just share if you have demonstrated this yourself, or you have experienced this with someone else, right? Has anybody either used that level 1, where while you're talking to, where somebody's talking to you, you're actually working out what you're going to say before they even finish, or someone's done that for you? Anyone?
Yes and yes, Taimur.
Yeah, I'd be amazed if all of you haven't experienced this yourself, or either done it yourself or experienced someone done it to you. Because as I say, most people are sitting at these levels 1, 2, and 3, right? And actually, one of the things that I've experienced is a lot of the people I love and I value are sitting at level 1, 2, and 3, which means I feel that I'm not being heard when I speak to them, which means psychologically there is a potential for us to get even more closer together and build that relationship to a higher level. So I see this as an opportunity, and what I do is to demonstrate how it's done when I'm with them, so that they see the impact and they learn through that process. I'm not there to go and teach them. I'm there to be doing what I think I can connect to them at a higher level psychologically and build that relationship. So I'm opening up this opportunity to you guys. If you're experiencing that and those relationships are important to you, you decide to shift your standard and start listening at a higher level. So with every one of these levels, I have created a consequence, the cause and effect. So if I'm thinking, let's think of this as a coaching example. So if I'm a coach and my client is coming in to talk to me, and as the client is talking to me, I'm actually thinking about what question I'm going to ask them. I'm not listening to them. What I'm actually doing is I'm listening to me. It's all about me. It's about how I'm performing. It's about what I want to know. And what happens is they won't feel heard. Through that conversation, they will not feel heard, and it will irritate them. And I will lose that client very quickly. That's if I'm a coach. Now, if it was my family and friends, they're not gonna let me go just because I don't have that skill, but they'll be irritated. They'll wonder how come they're not listened to. At some level, they will wonder how come I'm not listening to them, and it's not going to leave the impact I want. So that's level 1. Level 2. What is level 2? So this is one level further up, right? And it's still below par. So what does level 2 say? It's saying I'm relating what I'm hearing back to my own experiences. So how many of you have either done this or have experienced this? When somebody's talking to you, you immediately start taking what they've said and think about your experience of what they're talking about. I went on a holiday to Corfu, and it was really sunny and I was having a good time. Oh, I went to Corfu once and Corfu was amazing. What we did was we hired a bike and we went around the island. It was fantastic. How many of you experienced this? Yeah, it's so when that happens, what's the consequence? The consequence is the client or the person on the other side is going to feel that actually you don't really respect what it is that they want to share with you, and actually they're not important. The person who's important is you, and they're feeling ignored because they want to share their experiences with you. What you're really doing is sharing your experiences with them, so you're not listening at all. And that again is a psychological disconnect. So level 2 is another habit that we see happening, and I see this quite regularly in conversations. And it's a point of catching yourself if you're going there, stopping, and then going back to being present and listening to the other person. So let's go to level 3. What does level 3 say? Level 3 says, listen to what they say and then give them advice. Listen to what they say and give them advice. So I'm going to put one caveat here that somebody's come to you and started talking to you and they haven't asked you, can you listen to me and then give me some advice? So that's the caveat, right? So most of the time people come to us and start talking. Hey, you know, my arm really hurts today. I just woke up and my left arm is killing me. You know what you should do? I think what you should do is to go and have an MRI immediately. Because who knows, this could be a disaster. And then they might apply level 2. Last year, my friend had the similar thing and they didn't go to get an MRI. And within a week, the guy's arm bloated up and it was a disaster. It took much longer to get better. They might just put level 2 and level 3 together and bombard you with two ways of not listening. So anybody relate to that? I know this one I hear a lot from people who want to become coaches. And in a coaching conversation, you start giving advice to the client as opposed to coaching them. And that's one of the competencies, number 1, where to be a coach, you want to be having a mindset where the person is capable, able, powerful. They're here to observe and get to become more self-aware of themselves. And once they see it, they know what to do. I don't need to give them any advice whatsoever. So what's the consequences of this? So level 3 is a bit like level 1 in the sense that it will irritate them, right? Because they don't want advice, they want you to listen. And maybe they just want empathy. I can't even imagine what you're going through with that arm, right? I know how, you know, you're a left-hander and that arm, and you love tennis and you know you can't be playing tennis. I don't know what you're going through. Maybe that's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear an advice from you. And it leaves the speaker feeling that it's really about you. You know better to do for them, as opposed to them coming up with a solution that works for them. Now, if you work in an organization and you're a team leader, some of you said you're a team leader in the poll. One of the areas where I see leaders, managers, team leaders lose respect, lose the ability to make an impact, lose the opportunity to have the person become more and actually take more off their hands. They miss all that is because the manager thinks that the other person should go and do something in the way that they think it should be done. Whereas the manager's role is actually just to tell the other person what the outcome is going to look like and how we're going to measure it, and the boundaries that they can go and take action. Once that's clear, the best managers actually ask the other person, how are you going to go and do it, rather than give them the advice. So this is an opportunity. Again, if you're working in an organization, or if you're a coach, you want to be watching out for your clients being in those levels and supporting them to come out of those levels and move into levels 4 and 5, and ideally towards level 6 that I'm going to share with you today. So shall we dive into levels where it's kind of relating to the coaching skills? So before we go to level 4. So there's a reason I believe we have 2 ears and only 1 mouth. The concept is listen more, say less. And in a coaching conversation, you want to go into that conversation where you are conscious that you want to be asking questions, but it's short, succinct, and you want to allow the other person to do most of the talking, because that's where they're going to bring or evoke awareness. They're going to bring it out from within themselves. They need to do the talking, not you. Once you start doing the talking, you're getting into the advising and teaching mode as opposed to coaching mode. So for level 4, it says listening and inviting for more to get information and to understand. So at this level, what you're doing is you are curious. Your curiosity is at a level where you want to learn more about the person, their situation, their goal. You want to understand the meaning behind the word. You said this word, what does that mean to you? So you want to be understanding more, or you want to get more information to be able to understand what they're saying. So in this is a level of listening that I would say you're in the realm of coaching. And in the coaching conversation, you would only really disrupt the person talking if you want more clarity. If for example, they're talking abstract and you're not getting it, and so you want to jump in and say, can you just explain what that means? So you want to understand the meaning behind what they're saying. And what you're saying is, I realize their need to talk, to work the subject to a solution. So you come in with that mindset that as they talk, they will see. And I know this is like a metaphor. As they talk, they will see more clearly. And if the other person in front of you has a particular talent that drives them to understand through talking, that's even more important for that person to have a forum to talk, to become more aware of what they're saying, and they will create the solution by talking. They just need that forum, their space, and you're creating that space for them. So how many of you are of that nature? How many of you know that as you talk, you get to understand more about what you're doing and who you are and what the situation is, what the solution is? You need to talk to someone to be able to get that through. Okay, great. So just knowing that about yourself, that means that you will function more effectively if you have a space where you can do that. And one of the powerful things about coaching is that the person listening to you can act as a mirror for you and bring their own intuition for you to see the blind spots that you potentially have. And that's the added value that the coach can bring. So instead of you talking into the mirror, literally, to be able to see where you're going and what you want, you are actually talking to someone who is adding value through that conversation. So that's level 4. So let's go to level 5. Now, Brian Bell came up with this paragraph saying a little recognized value of listening and inquiring relates to the realization that in human relationships, it's frequently not what the facts are, but what people think the facts are, which is truly important. There is benefit in learning what somebody else's concept of the reality of the situation is. What does this mean? It means that all of us carry our own personal truth when we go into conversations. It's our truth. It's not the public truth. It's what we believe is reality. And one of the reasons you as the listener can impact, one of the ways you can impact is to listen at the level 5 where you are going beyond what it is that they're saying. And you're catching the messages beyond the words. And you are listening to that person from the concept of what is their perceptions, their beliefs, what are they carrying as stories? What is their truth? Now, for those of you who are coaches, you've heard of reframing perspectives. So when you hear someone with their perspective and they think that's the truth, you have the power through your listening to then come back with questions and observations to reframe so that they see things from a different perspective and a new window opens for them because they're seeing something new that they've never seen before. So a new truth comes up and they take a new action from it. So you are a facilitator of the person who is sharing by being able to see their current truth or reality. And if that's a barrier for them to move forward to what they want, a different perspective could shift that and they can start moving towards what they want. That's another consequence of sitting at level 5. So what does level 5 say? It says that you're listening behind the words. You're listening behind the words. So as well as the words, you're listening to what's behind those words. What is that person really saying? There are silences in your conversation, which means you're allowing space. That space allows them to think and bring out what they really want to bring out. And you're sharing your intuition. So your radars are up. And if you're picking up certain things, you are sharing that intuition to them. And so what's the consequences? So this level of listening leads to you potentially providing feedback where they can see some opportunities where they can grow, learn towards the outcome they are desiring. So as you're listening to me, I trust you're hearing that at level 5, what you are really doing is you are creating a communication that's effective towards new awareness or expanding the awareness that they already have towards cultivating learning and growth so that new habits can be created. And those new habits end up being the facilitator for the outcome or the desired outcome that the individual wants. So there's a lot of power sitting there in terms of impact that you can have on the individuals. Now, I want to throw in this bonus. And this bonus is, I call it listening at mastery level. And so with this level of listening, you are listening to the whole person. What I mean by that? So if you look at yourself for a second, you as a person, have a series of talents. You've had a series of experiences to date. You have a series of values that you live by. You have a set of beliefs that you've cultivated over the years. And you are living what I call a system. So your environment, the situation you're in, at work or at home, the people around you, how things get done in your life right now. That's the system you're sitting in. So at this level, you're listening to the whole person and the system that they're in. So it's almost like a three-dimensional way of listening to someone. You're listening to who they are, the talents, experiences, etc., values. You're listening to the situation they're in. You know, if they're talking about their work, the situation could be a really high-level project that they're delivering and they're responsible for it. They've got a timeline. They've got a team. They've got some issues and barriers that they're sitting in that system right now. That's their situation. And also they have a set of goals and outcomes they want. And somehow, through your listening, you are listening to all three of them at the same time and the relationship between those three. And through that, your level of feedback and observation and questioning could enhance by an order of magnitude. So the consequence of this is, at this level, this could lead to focusing on their talents and how those talents can be applied not just to the goal that they've come to deliver, but because talents is about who they are, it could also impact elsewhere in their lives too. So if they've come in to talk about their relationship with their team and the challenges with that, and you discover through listening that it is how they're applying their talents that's getting them into trouble, it's very likely that they're applying those talents in the same way in other areas of their lives. If they learn to manage that, it will impact not only the project, but also in other areas of their lives. So you can see at the mastery level, you're going to have a much higher impact to that individual, positive impact. And that's why, as coaches go through the associate to professional to master level, that's why they earn more income per hour, because they're adding more value. It's through the skills that they're learning, through the 8 competencies that ICF has identified to that level. So at this point, I want to just put a pause and come back to you. Are there any questions that you have right now before we go into the demonstration, the quick demonstration? Anyone have any questions or insights that they want to share?
Pedram asked a question earlier. He put it in the chat. And his question was, why more attention is paid to listening as compared to observation or other senses?
Yeah, great question, Pedram. So I'm going to answer this by asking a question. How do you know someone's listening? How do you know someone's really listening and understands? Think about that for a second. So how will you demonstrate you are really listening? How can you demonstrate that you're really listening? Anyone? Pedram? Anyone?
You replay back what you've understood.
So you can paraphrase or summarize. That's absolutely right, Praf. That's one way where the other person knows that you've been listening, or at least if you haven't understood, you can get to an agreement by going backwards and forwards until the other person says, yes, that's exactly what I meant. What else?
That's a
How else?
clarification question, I suppose. I mean, the sort of technique that I would use there, Taimur, would be to say in two ways of summarizing it. So let me just replay what I think I've just heard, and then you go through that. So that's a useful phrase that I've found works. And also asking them, what did you mean by that? Those
Yeah.
sort of gives me areas which allow me to take a sort of course down a particular route.
Great. So the first one Chris mentioned was very similar to what Praf said. The second one is through questions. You ask them a question, and by asking the question has come from the listening. If the question has come from what you heard, the other person knows you are listening. Right? So if somebody's coming to you and talking about the challenge that they have, and you ask a question in relation to the challenge you're hearing, they know the question is related to what they've said, which means that they feel heard and want to participate going forward. Chris, do you want to add something?
Just a quick point, just to reiterate on that original question about observation being another way. Obviously, demonstrating your listening through those techniques is definitely helpful. And in the event that you were purely on a telephone call where you couldn't see the other person, that would be ideal. But of course, that's probably not the best way to have a coaching exchange. But yeah, I think it's a sort of complete view of somebody. So it's is that percentage, your body language and your the signals that you give off, what you see from somebody also demonstrates engagement.
Yeah. So absolutely. So another way of demonstrating you have heard is through your observations. So if you're observing somebody's physiology doesn't match with what they said, and you give them that as feedback, through your observation, you are demonstrating listening. The observation could be through timeline. It could be through a series of sessions that you've had with them as a coach, or if it's a relationship at work, it could be through the years that you've been working with that person, or if it's family, it could be through the lifetime that you've known that person. It's the observation that demonstrates your listening in the context of what the person has shared. Right? So if somebody's talking to you and you observe either a physiology or words or the way they're expressing it, and it doesn't match with some history, your observation is going to be adding value. Because if it doesn't match, there's something to learn for that person. And that's what you're there for. You're there as a catalyst for them to learn something about themselves. That's how you add the value. Now, if the person sees that gap, they have now a chance to go and work on a new habit, something that they could develop to become even better at whatever it is that they're keen on dealing with. So I trust that, Pedram. I trust that. Cool. Okay, so let's go to the demo. So Chris, do you want to carry on? Let's start with you.
Okay.
Yeah. So share, please.
So I've always wondered how I can show gravitas in a scenario without sounding boastful.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's very important to be able to communicate effectively and show that you have caliber and capability and a skill set. But also there's this sort of inherent worry that somehow I'm going to come off as some sort of show off or somebody that is, that guy that just talks about himself the whole time. And it's that worry. So as a sort of question from a coaching point of view, I would be, is what other techniques do you think that I should be picking up on using my strengths to demonstrate that without necessarily just harping on about myself all the time, because it replays that point about yourself in terms of one of those listening problems.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks for sharing and being a volunteer, Chris. So I'm going to put this through a conversation we're all going to have, because this is not about me coaching Chris. This is about this group testing their listening. So let's start with this question. What did you hear Chris wants to walk away with from this conversation? That's a question for everybody else, right? What did you hear Chris wants to walk away with from this conversation? So you can put it in the chat, or you can open up your line and share, whichever you feel more comfortable.
Yes, for techniques, for you to give him techniques on how to focus his strengths, to do what he wants, like to resolve his question that he posed.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nicole. Okay, anybody else wants to add to that? Just want to see if anybody else had any other views.
Basically, he wants to demonstrate his competence without appearing to be boastful.
Okay, so he's looking for an outcome of demonstrating his abilities without appearing boastful. And Nicole was saying that he wants to walk away with a technique that he can actually do that. So I'm just waiting to see if there's anything else in the chat from a perspective of the way you've listened to that.
Yes, I have a additional to that. I think the most important is that we really need to listen and calm down to hear the system. So it's like the system needs all the attention for us, and this is really hard, I think, in order to fulfill that level. So it's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Cecilia, what do you think? What do you think Chris said with regards to the system? What did you hear?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, and for this reason, I follow this, because when I hear English is not my first language, so I was struggling to understand everything. But when take some parts of the different things, I realized that maybe even if we don't have the understanding of the language, when we understand the system, maybe we get a message. So for this reason, I put in the table this answer.
Great. And you're spot on, Cecilia, that maybe at a deeper level, even though there's a language barrier, maybe your ears heard that there is a systematic challenge that Chris added. I'm going to address this, but I'm going to dive into this shortly. But there is definitely something Chris said that is to do with the system that he's in, and by realizing what that is, he could open up ways of getting to the outcome he wants. So from Nicole, we heard the KPI that Chris is looking for, technique. From Puya, we heard that Chris is looking for an outcome that tells him, as he is demonstrating his abilities, he's leaving others feeling that they are hearing that ability only and nothing more.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cecilia mentioned that Chris is talking about a system he's in, because Chris didn't say it happens all the time. So if it's happening only sometimes, then what is it about that situation and the person that makes this happen some of the time and not all of the time? So there's something there about what we're hearing that could enhance that. Puya.
Gavin has a question. I just want to bring your attention.
Gavin, please.
Hi, Timo. Now I'm going to I listen, and from my point, if I listen to him, it's more like a lack of self-confidence when he's in that role as a coach. So he lacks self-confidence. So it's struggling with a belief within himself. What I heard.
Okay, so Gavin, what is it you specifically heard? What is it that made you conclude in this way? Can you give a reference of any kind?
He referred to although he referred to boasting sounding like he sounds. Can I say it? Struggling with my words now, but how to express himself, that he doesn't sound like he's taking charge, or how can I say? But sometimes those things usually come because of we too scared, because we're not confident, and the only way we fall back is we struggle to believe that what we're going to share, or how we're going to listen, or how we're going to share information is because of a lack of self-confidence. And as we go along, those things start disappearing, and you become more confident, and you might say the same thing at the same time, and you will express it differently because of the confidence, the lack of confidence, that suddenly there was a barrier at some stage is now removed, and now you speak with much more confidence. I mean, if we sit sometimes with certain people, it sounds like this guy is so confident because he understands his topic, and if you don't listen properly, it might sound differently. But for me, it's why I'm saying it is maybe it's because I also went through the same process, and the way he explained it, I also try, and so he actually highlighted something that I'm experiencing.
Yeah. So thank you, Gavin. And Gavin, are you okay that we take what you just said and get some learning from it, and you get some feedback? Are you okay with that?
100%.
Cool. Okay, so guys, when you listen to Gavin, so before you guys say anything, let's hear it from Chris. Chris, on a level 1 to 5, right? Just purely about how you feel, right? When you were listening to Gavin, 5 is what Gavin was saying and the way he was saying it. You felt heard. 1 is you didn't feel heard at all. Where are you at, just as a gut feel?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. I think it resonated with me in some areas. I think there are other things. I think to give a straight answer, I would say it's probably 3.5, 4, something like that. So he was close, and I think he sussed what I was trying to get across. And I think the reality there, when you asked at the end, because he said he had experienced, Gavin, you'd experienced the same thing. I think there's a very real resonance there. But I think my piece is I'm very confident as a person. I am confident in what I do because of my experience in it. What I am not as experienced about, though, is coaching using these techniques. So I think it's that part. It's my belief in myself on those pieces that I actually do have something to offer. And this is where I worry that when I start explaining what I've done to bring that sort of gravitas to the table in coaching, I don't have a lot of war stories to be able to bring to the table. So it sounds like I'm artificially saying something. It's not natural to bring it up.
Okay. So thank you, Gavin. Thank you, Chris. The rest of you who gave feedback. Let's just go and listen to what Gavin said from a perspective of levels.
Yeah.
So out of the levels of coaching, levels of listening, did anybody hear Gavin at level 1? Did anybody hear Gavin at level 2? Let me just bring those up because some of you may not remember what the levels are. Just want to.
I felt level 2 when it says I am relating what I hear back to my own experiences.
Yeah.
He said I can relate to Chris when he said this and that. So he said that, and then level 3 when he listened and gave advice. I think he said like what I think you should do is this and that, and it would be better if. So I heard some advice as well. I didn't hear level 4 precisely. I didn't hear more questions, but more sort of, I would say maybe like statements. And there was not precisely a conversation. So maybe level 5 couldn't happen because there were not like silences and things that we're sharing. And
great.
I didn't feel challenged from anything that was said.
Right. So so Gavin, I want you to take this away from a perspective of how you're presenting to the person who's spoken. How are you presenting what you've heard them say? If you start talking about your own experiences, you're talking about you and not Chris. No matter how you think your experience is absolutely similar to Chris, it's never going to be the same. Because the system Chris sits in is different to all of us. It's unique. So in that uniqueness, there's something that Chris can build as an insight, awareness, so that he can then go and get to the outcome he wants. So Gavin, my feedback to you is go to the intuition, which I think you had in addition to level 2 and 3. You had an intuition about what's happening here. And it's the way you're presenting your intuition. And that might increase the impact to the person, because they don't hear it from a subjective point of view. They're hearing it from an objective point of view. It's your intuition, but they're hearing it objectively. I trust that helped. So let's go back to Chris. Did anybody, so far, the outcome Chris is looking for, at some level, it's I want a technique. At another level is I want to be able to demonstrate my abilities without sounding that I'm showing off. And then there's this thing around the systems he's in, that this is happening some of the time, not all the time. Is that right, Chris?
That's right.
Some of the time, not all the time. So when it's happening, there is a clue and an opportunity for learning. Whenever it's happening, that's the time when Chris needs to observe what is specific about that time. Is it the person? Is it the situation? Is it what he was utilizing and how he was presenting, how he was feeling inside? So it was about him. What is it about that situation? And that's the question that could take him to the system, as opposed to observing techniques per se. He wants technique. My experience is that most people, when they are stuck in a challenge that's repeating itself, it's about their mindset and it's not about strategy or technique. So what's happening in the system becomes much more, there's an opportunity for learning. It's a big opportunity for learning. And at level 4 and 5, that's where you're moving. You're moving into that realm where you are starting to observe the relationship between Chris in those cases when this is happening, the relationship between Chris himself, who he is, and the outcome he wants, the outcome he feels he needs to deliver, and the situation that he's in. Now, if we look at those three relationships, Chris will come up with some insights. I can guarantee it. That will be the conversation where he will gain the insight and then go and start developing on that. Nicole.
Timur, I have a question. Like this talks about the system, but I also wonder if we were, for example, in a coaching conversation, if like I would like more information about if it's a self-perception, or is it actually somebody that said like, hey, I didn't really get what you said, or I, you know, is if it's something that's like a self-belief, let's say. I don't know how to pose that question, but
I think I get it.
I don't know if that makes sense.
So part of this opportunity to understand Chris is the questions you will raise. So Nicole's just raised the question, right? And if she's talking about, if her question is about, can you explain to me when does this happen and how it happens? That's level 4. She's asking questions to get more clarity and more information and more understanding. That's level 4. Now you may start at level 4 because you need that information. There's not enough information for you to move up to the higher level. So you're asking, and that's what you do. And then you get to a point where you might add your intuition and say, from what I heard behind what you said, there is something about Chris. Maybe there's something about the importance of how you make others feel. That's what I'm hearing that you're worried about. How true is that?
That's spot on. That's good intuition there, Timur. It's almost as if you know me.
Yeah. So the word Chris used, what word did he use that you could have listened for, that meant there's something there about Chris rather than actually anything else?
Yeah, he said how others feel, or how he makes other people feel. That was the key thing, I think, statement.
And did you also, thanks, Praf, that's exactly right. Did you hear him talk about being worried? The word worry, I worry, right? If somebody is worried that it's perceived as show off, if I'm worried that I will be perceived showing off, that's behind the words. You're listening behind the words here. What does that mean? And if you listen to it, it sounds like Chris is talking about the importance of others, because he's worried about being perceived that way. He doesn't want to be perceived that way. That's what he's saying. I don't want to be perceived that way. So other people are important to him. Now, what's happening when this comes up, right? When does he get worried? That would be the next set of questions where you're starting to move Chris to getting more self-awareness towards doing it in a different way. And that may lead then to a technique, right, of some sort. But the technique is the outcome. What the real source is to find out what's going on in Chris's head, right? What is the talent that Chris has that brings up this feeling of making sure that his relationship with others are at a level where it's trusting and it's authentic? You know, he's got relator in his top 5. I'm kind of guessing relator and individualization as the two themes are playing there and giving him some feelings, right? He's not happy with potential outcomes and he wants to change that round. So it's about managing those, right? So he could potentially use his learner as a theme, as a talent, to be able to learn to utilize that in a different way. Right? That could be the conversation, and that could be the technique. Right? Ultimately, that could be the technique that he's going to develop to grow. Now, if for some of you who are not familiar with the language I've just shared, talent is how in strength talk, in the concept that we educate, talent is really an automated, natural recurring way that Chris, you, I think, feel, behave. And we all have talents. And Gallup has created a system where you can have, out of the 34 themes of talents, when you do the assessment, you can define what is your top 5 themes. Chris he's written it next to his name. He's done the test. So by having that, he has insight about what's driving him, because these talents are automated. It's part of who he is. Now, if he gets access to that, and if you're a coach and you're talking to a client, you know his themes, it can give you an advantage in terms of getting the person, understanding the person, and then being able to support them to develop those talents. And in the workshop that we run, in essence, once you know the talent, identify your talent, you want to go and really see where the power is behind that talent and where you've used that talent to get results. Really own it. And then, like Chris, go and execute on individualization related learner in a way that's intentional to get the outcome he wants. And that would be part of the actions he will take away in the coaching session as his takeaway and how he's going to go and do that. So Chris, before I pass on to Puya and we hear from him, would you like to share your takeaway?
That I thought was exceptional. It's really sort of made me think again, reflecting on what that feedback was, to build on the strengths that I have, to position me to actually utilize that skill to learn more, which will in the technique of doing the skill of actively listening and questioning, I will almost be sidestepping my need to sound, to show off, because I'll be getting it with him. So that was very helpful. Thank you.
Awesome. Guys, before I hand over to Puya, would you like to just put in the chat, if you want, is there an insight you're walking away with? Is there something that you've learned, or there's an insight, or you simply want to share to others? It'd be lovely to hear your thoughts, and then you can take it away.
Well, for me, an insight would be that it's like seeing you lead this laser focused coaching session in just like a couple of sentences. You were able to lead him towards that insight. Like, it was very powerful because you are trained and experienced in listening to the deepest of levels, so it makes it very powerful and very fast. Well, as being sort of a new coach, then it takes more time, and it takes some practice, and it's a nice way of seeing it in action.
Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, Tay, I was just going to add that in this kind of exercise, it's probably difficult to kind of go beyond level 3, right? In the time that you had and the interaction that you had, you can get some basic and sort of foundational elements discovered, but like you said, you need to probe, you need to ask questions, you need to elicit information to get to that desired state, and you probably didn't have enough time to spend on this. Is a key takeaway for me.
Awesome, thanks, Prav. I know some of you are writing in the chat, so I'm gonna pass on to Puya, and I'll be reading what you've said in the chat before we end. Thanks for those of you who participated. Chris, you're awesome. Thank you for volunteering. And thank you for volunteering. Apologize for not getting to you today. And thanks everyone for attending this this workshop. I just want to remind everyone that there's a poll active for specifically around the next steps you may have in your development. We'd really appreciate to hear your feedback on those. And then before you go, as I promised, I'm going to finish off with a poll where you can test your listening level by answering a series of questions, and then I'll give you the marking system, how you can mark it and see where your next level of development is aimed at. So once we complete this this poll that's up and running right now, I will finish off the workshop with giving you that last poll so you can evaluate yourselves. Just give a few more seconds for those who are completing the form, and then I'll share the final poll system. Okay, so here goes, guys. Guys and girls, I'm going to share. There's 10 questions. So just give you the concept of how you're going to mark yourself. For every question that you say that you are usually doing this particular habit. So for every question that you say, yes, usually I do that, you give yourself 2 points. If you are saying that you sometimes do it, you give yourself 1 point. So for every question, you either give yourself 2 points, 1 point, or 0 because you're not usually doing it. Is that clear? Here we go. So at the end of it, you can top up, and if let me just give you this as well. If your score is between 19 and 20 for the 10 questions, you are at the level of mastery already for listening. If it's 16 to 18, you're at level 5. If you are at 12 to 15, you're level 4. And if you score total 11 or less, you're at level 1 to 3. And the key to this is to be absolutely honest to yourself, because we're not going to see the results. You be honest, and then you can determine where you can go from here for the development. So here goes. I can see there's a few more, few of you who are completing the survey. I'm going to give you a few more seconds to kind of finish off, and then we'll wrap up. If anybody in the meanwhile has a question around the scoring system, please ask me in the chat so I can respond. Okay, we're over 80% complete. I'm kind of guessing that we're done. I want to thank each and one of you for being here, putting your time and energy. I trust we'll catch up in the new future ICE cafes or strength workshop. Look forward to seeing you again. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Stay safe. Take care.